Hi, I'm Abe Ovadia, and this is Coffee Talk.
Hi everyone, I'm Kim Perlak. I'm the chair of the guitar department here at Berklee College of Music, and welcome to another Coffee Talk. As usual, I'm coffee cheers ing to Cheryl Bailey, our assistant chair. Hey Cheryl.
Got a cup here for the
Yeah,
afternoon, yes.
yeah, it's gonna be a big one this afternoon. And as usual, we're with Ben Cody, our senior coordinator. Hey Ben.
I don't have the matching coffee mug, but Abe and I have the matching leather jacket, so it's the consistency.
I love it. And our special guest today is Abe. And Abe, I'm gonna have you say your last name so that I pronounce it properly. Can you
Oh,
say
no
your name,
problem.
please?
Ovadia, I've heard it so many different
Adia.
ways.
Yeah, I didn't want to take a shot there and do it wrong because Abe is a distinguished alum of ours who has his own beautiful podcast that Cheryl and I have both been honored to participate in called the Rabbit Hole Sessions. And he's a great guitar player and teacher, and we're just so happy to have you on. So welcome, Abe. Welcome
It's an
home, Berkeley.
honor to be here. Honor to be here virtually.
This is great. So, Abe, do you drink coffee? That's the first question we always start with.
I do, but right now I'm having a Pellegrino. I did have 3 cups of coffee today already, but once I have coffee in the late afternoon, I'm probably not going to sleep. So, but I mean, how can you be a musician and not drink coffee? I mean, it seems like they go hand in hand.
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of found that in a lot of ways. And I guess one of the things that is interesting is like, has your sort of strategy with coffee and hydration, we talk about that a lot too, has that changed over the years?
Well, I didn't start drinking coffee until I went to grad school. I remember I was at NYU and I was just I randomly went, my friend gave me an espresso. We were going on our way to class. He's like, "Hey, do you want to go get an espresso?" I'm like, "I've never had one." And then that was when I was probably 22 or something. And then I've been hooked. But no, I'm an iced coffee person. I make it the night before, so that way it's ready for me in the fridge. Any success I have had is mostly contributed to coffee.
I love that. But you feel though that that sort of the jolt or the energy it gives you, it becomes diminishing returns as you go through your day.
Yeah, I mean, it's I maybe I'll have a decaf in the late afternoon, but it's it's my favorite thing about getting up in the morning. I mean, I'm such a coffee person. Like if I go to a hotel, if I'm on the road, like I have to bring my iced coffee with me
Hmm.
in the fridge, like and just and like I'm very I have to have things a certain way when it comes to coffee. So
Hmm.
any Starbucks or the canned coffees I like. But yeah, I'm every day, at least 2 cups.
So you started to talk about something there that was on my mind that often comes out of this discussion that is we started it just for fun, but then we found out it has practical action. Like you're a person that has a multifaceted career. You're saying, "Oh, when I'm on the road, I need it to be like this." Or when you're traveling or when you're going through different parts or phases of your career, how do you manage that, and how do you manage, I mean, the little things like coffee, but like you're juggling a number of different things in your career.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do wear a lot of different hats. So for instance, today I'm teaching at doing my college teaching job, but then this past weekend I was doing concerts in New Jersey. The week before I was doing gigs in Connecticut, Massachusetts, and upstate New York, plus running a music school in New Jersey. So um, it's it's definitely chaotic, but I think it builds, you know, I don't know, it builds some sort of resilience because if you're going to be a musician long term, I think you definitely have to have a thick skin and just be ready to jump into any situation at any time. So, I think just doing all those different things has certainly been helpful. Like even when I got asked to do my college teaching job, I was given maybe uh 3 weeks notice it was to come up with 8 semesters of curriculum.
Mm.
But because I'm used to like kind of operating at this speed that, I think I'm able to adapt to those things relatively quickly. But this day and age, I think if you're going to be a musician, you got to have many hats, got to have a bunch of things going on.
Yeah, I think that's really true. And I wonder, did you always feel that way, or is that something that came to you as you went through your education and went through your first years as a professional musician? When you came to Berkeley, which is really the place that I can think of that's most kind of aligned with that vision right from the beginning, did you have that mindset when you got here, or is that something that you developed as you moved on?
Well, I knew I wanted to play jazz guitar, but I knew it was going to be very difficult because I remember there used to be this place in the West Village called the Garage on 7th Avenue South. And it was a gig that was from like 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Right in the heart of the village. And, we were making, every person in the band was making $40. So I did the math. I did this and I'm like, well, let's say I did this every day for, or 5 days a week. I'm like, how am I going to survive? So it was, probably at that point when I developed a sort of, an awareness about that you have to have other things going on. So, believe it or not, like I also make guitar straps too. So that was about 12 years ago. And yeah, that's at that point, that's when I decided to leave New York City and move back to New Jersey and start my first business making guitar straps, basically to, have a way that I could pursue jazz, but also have sort of, any steady income that I could have. Plus I, teaching at the time, I just think I think it's important, even if I talk to, I was talking to Dave Liebman one time and he said, if you got to wear many hats, and he calls it the double major. But at Berkeley, I was just when I was at Berkeley, I didn't leave my apartment for like 4 years just to practice because I knew I was kind of catching up with jazz because I didn't start playing jazz till I went to Berkeley. So that was I call that like the shed time. Like my social life was very, very diminished. But I had these certain dreams I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to like play guitar professionally for people. And even though it's not technically looked at like, oh, the best job a professional musician could have, but like when I was 19, I got a job working on cruise ships my second year, like summer break after Berkeley. But I think it's having that idea like, oh, like you just have to have a goal and look towards it. So but I think it's about work ethic too.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, that's obviously a consistent that you have and looking for opportunities, right? Being curious about things, not discounting things.
Never. Yeah.
Yeah, that seems to be just a consistent in everything I've heard that you've talked about. So that must be a kind of a cool thing when you can look back, having done so many different things, and see this common thread of your values right through everything. Do you find that that in itself helps ground you when you're looking to see like what might come next?
You mean just the overall the work ethic?
Yeah, I guess having a work ethic and sort of knowing, like having this expectation that things may change and that you've been able to change with those changes that you've
Oh,
experienced
absolutely. Yeah. I
before.
mean, absolutely. I mean, even my college teaching job, like they're cutting the arts department. So
Mhm.
that job is being phased out. So in 2 years, I won't, have that job, but it's not the end of the world. I mean, I'm going to just, roll with the punches. And I know that if I just put myself out there, with my best foot forward, that there'll be another opportunity that presents itself. So, yeah, I mean, because that's the thing. Like, I went to get my master's degree so I could teach at a college, and then finally got my position 10 years after my master's, and then 5 years later, it's like, oh, it's going to be phased out because the college they're just cutting the arts completely. So it's not just me. But like I said, it's okay. It'll be just fine.
I want to touch on that just for a minute because you also have a school that you
Correct.
run. And I think it is so sad to me when I hear that schools are cutting arts programs. And one of the reasons it's sad, and one of the other reasons why I'm very grateful for what you're doing, is because you found another way. You have a school
Hmm.
And also I think there is a value in a master's degree, even though a lot of people get one because it's a credential that's necessary. There's also just a value, I think, in doing that kind of self-reflection and study and when what you bring back to your teaching. And so I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about what you think is valuable for students as a person who runs a school. Like what pulled you into music education for people who want to be professionals, but also for people who want to learn music and aren't thinking about a professional life in music.
Well, I'll break this down for you. So before I opened my school, which was in 2019, I was always applying for college teaching jobs, and they would be presented, but a couple of the times that I was offered positions, um, I would have ended up losing money because I would have had to travel too far. It would have been one class. It would have been like two students. So it was at that point where I'm like, you know what, like this opportunity is not going to present itself. So I have to, go another way. So I'm going to open my own school. So that was the mindset going in. But then like I had the school for like 2 years. And then that's when I was offered the college teaching job that I have now. So it's like, you can't plan for this stuff. So I just think that's kind of funny how that happened, because it's like I opened the schools because I wasn't getting the college teaching job, and then the college teaching job presented itself like while I was running the school. So that's an interesting
Yeah.
part about it, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too. Do you think there's some non-musical things that people gain from studying music that you could put your finger? This is something we talk about all the time. You know,
Non-musical?
yeah, like non-musical things that you gain from studying music.
I mean, I think it's a big calling. I think it's going to prepare you to do. I think if you're at an institution that you have to do certain requirements and you have to develop the skills on your instrument, then I think you're just I believe that you're equipped for a number of things. There's just something I just go back to thinking about the work ethic that comes with it. But just accessing parts of your brain that you didn't even know you had. I mean, not just the creative part, but there's certain mathematical things that go hand in hand with music. So I think like for instance, when I started my podcast, just the same approach that I would have to like learning certain things on the instrument, that translates to like starting a podcast, just taking baby steps, I guess you could say. It's not about getting to the place like immediately. It's just the journey. So I think that sets you up to also have the patience too for life in that way.
In the podcast, you've interviewed so many people in such a short time.
150.
It's, yeah, congratulations. That's a milestone.
Thank you.
What are some of the things that stand out to you, like some of the answers, some of the questions the things that you thought were particularly cool or thought-provoking or interesting? Were there any threads or something that someone said that really popped to you?
It's interestingly enough, it's some of the conversations that happen when we're not rolling.
Yeah.
That when I hear, obviously everyone shares things that I love when people open up, but some of the things I hear, once we stop rolling, it's definitely every artist is always pushing forward. I think if you're serious, like we're all longing for, not, I'm not going to say the next thing, but there's certain things every artist wants that another artist might have that they don't have, but there's always some sort of frustration or longing for another component of their career. So that what I've noticed that is that everyone kind of shares that we're all longing to just keep pushing forward, and that you're not alone thinking like that certain people can't get, whether it's booked to play certain places or haven't had the most success when it comes to creating record dates. It's like everyone is always longing for something, the next thing, not the next thing, but you know what I mean? It's just a journey.
Yeah, that's interesting. that's really cool that you heard so many stories that gave you that impression in such a short time. That's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I think and that's the thing too. I mean, jazz is sort of there's a whole exclusivity part about it. When I really believe that the community should be more inclusive, I think we all have something to celebrate. I think we can all celebrate each other's uniqueness. I think that everybody has their own career path and no one's career looks exactly the same. So I think the podcast for me was also just about, I just wanted to create a space that it's not going to be, well, we're just going to have like master players on, but there's going to be up and coming players. There's going to be the veterans of the music, people like yourself and Sheryl, people who are sort of in the middle, not just focusing on one instrument, but just kind of bringing everybody in because everyone has their story. And I think that if more people just hear these stories, then the whole, music scene, jazz scene, whatever you want to call it, is just going to be healthier overall because there, like I said, there is, the jazz scene can be a little bit exclusive, as I said.
Mm-hmm. Sheryl, what's on your mind? This was quite an introduction. There's so many things to talk about, but what stood out to you so far?
Well, I mean, going back to this thing about, well, first of all, education. It's not in fashion now. To be educated or learned, if you want to say it that. And that process of studying something deeply, in particular the arts, whether it's music or other arts, teaches you problem solving on a really deep level. And that thing of like, yeah, how do I approach this? And getting advice to that, and also learning how to study something. To be good at something, you have to kind of figure out how to study it. And I would credit many of my teachers who really helped me learn how to learn, because then you're off and going. So wherever you go, and I think it's true just about in any academic, higher learning, people go, hey, I want to be a lawyer, or I want to be this or what, and they end up doing different things, and they end up going in different directions. But none of that was a waste. Actually, all of those things that you learn bring you to where you are as a person, just spiritually, mentally, and then the skills that you develop. And I mean, all of that is really worthwhile as far as I'm concerned, in that it just deepens your experience as a human, right? This is important, even though it's not in fashion these days to talk about that. So, and also I like what you were saying. Well, there's two things: that you started your own school. And I think this is the kind of thing that, successful people also do, is they just build it for themselves. There isn't I guess it could make you feel maybe insecure, anxious, or like there's not a definitive road path, but there really isn't to anything people choose to do in life. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of it comes down to that. So when you can accept that, I think in your case, you were frustrated, something that you wanted, there was a wall there, and you said, okay, I'm just gonna go over here, and then all of a sudden a door opened over there. I found that myself many times. When I moved to New York, I was like, man, I want to work on being a jazz player. And then I ended up doing tons of pop gigs and singer-songwriter gigs and playing bass in like a kind of hard rock band at CBGB's and just all kinds of crazy things. And I loved doing all of them. And then as soon as I kind of almost gave up this thing that I wanted, all of a sudden that door opened up. So it is a funny thing, like, right? Like an act of faith. In like, you develop those skills through your studies, and at a certain point, you just have to trust that is going to open the next door, right?
Yeah. I mean, I believe that we have to just as artists get creative with I think that we can, the real impact is reaching the people directly. And I just think I would love it if just more musicians just thought a little bit, like think about outside the box with whatever the next thing you want to do is. If you can't get there, find a way to get close to it, or find a way that's going to get your statement out there.
I think that's such a great point, and I think it's really important to keep thinking about how you're going to continue to create and continue to be doing what you're doing, no matter where you are, even as your circumstances change. And I think, Ben, there's a question you usually ask more towards the end, but it sounds to me like this is a great time to ask a fellow alum your question.
Yes, so this is what we ask every guest, and it's always exciting to see the different answers. What is a question that students should be asking that they're not thinking of asking when they're here?
At Berkeley, what should the students be asking that they're not, that they may not think about asking their teachers when they're there? Ooh. Hmm.
Okay, I guess it's not necessarily asking the teachers. I guess it could be just a question in general, maybe.
Oh, okay. I think the students should be asking themselves, what do I truly want? Where do I want to be in 5 years? Where do I want to be in 10 years? What do I really want? We're only on this, living this life one time. Be true to yourself and don't lie to yourself about what you really want. I think it's just, what does my heart say is the right thing to do? That's all.
I really love that answer, and I also think it's such a hard thing I mean, you seem so confident and self-assured, to be able to do that. And I think one thing I try to work on with my students as much as I can is what can you do musically and personally to be centered enough so when the world is crazy around you that you feel that you have a core. And do you have moments where you have to remind yourself of that? Or do you really feel like you've always just sort of been, okay, here we go. I'm solid in what I want and I know what my heart wants.
Yeah, I was raised that my dad came to this country with no money. He lived in his car. He literally had nothing. He started businesses that failed. He started businesses that were successful. He had lost, if I told you the amounts of money he had lost in his businesses, you would be like, I don't know how someone would survive that. But he always taught me, it's like, you can do whatever you want to do. Like, that's totally fine. You want to be a musician, you can do anything you want to do, but just know one thing, no one's going to give you anything. So I think it's about that awareness that you just, don't be expected to be, and it's not like a negative outlook or something. This is like, you can empower yourself to pursue the opportunities. And like I said before, get creative when they're not presenting themselves to you. So, and those are my thoughts about it.
Along those lines, do you have advice for students who really sometimes feel paralyzed by self-doubt? I think that one thing that's different for some people in the younger generation is that there's just so much input and so much noise and so much comparison because of social media. What are your thoughts for younger players that are coming up and like maybe not quite having thought the way you are? Maybe they're not even giving themselves permission to say, what do I want?
Yeah, it's such a confusing time. I just think we're just comparing ourselves constantly. And it's, I think social media is amazing, but I think it's, what I mean? It's the yin and yang effect. But if I could tell any people about, their self-doubt, whether it's musically or, we're always going to deal with doubt, and it's something in life, whether it's music or not. So I think, I've maybe about 11 or 12 years ago, I started meditating. So meditating, it was just, a little bit of mindfulness meditating, just about watching your thoughts and learning how to separate them. I think it is something that's very helpful. And then later on, I learned how to do transcendental meditation, which is a little bit different. But I think it's just, I think just having that awareness that you aren't the thoughts, and just about, you're never gonna be 100% like confident, and you're never gonna be 100%. It's gonna always change, and just be aware that things are always changing, and your thoughts are just like the clouds. They just keep moving and they change. So I think, spiritually, I mean, if you want to say it's spiritual or not, I think developing that awareness is certainly very helpful.
I really think so too. I think that's right. The more you can know yourself in a positive way, in a deep way, I think it will really help. And it sort of leads me to this question that Sheryl usually asks. And so I'm going to ask the question and then kick it back to Sheryl, because I think hand in hand with what you're talking about, especially given all the things that you do, is that you have to have a practice routine that works, or at least an approach to having a practice routine that works. Even though I mean, consistency is its own thing, right? It might not be the same every day, but could you walk us through? And the reason I'm asking is because I want to know. I'm actually really interested in how you do it, but also because we also have a lot of people who come in who are students at this time of the semester, just saying like, I just am so overwhelmed. I have so many things going on that I
Hmm.
just can't sit down and focus and practice. And a lot, they'll say they don't have the time, but really what's happening, I think, is that it's hard to focus when there's so many other things in your schedule. And so, can you walk us through how you handle that? Because I'm going to imagine that you have a really good system.
I do. I mean, well, I mean, at least this is what works for me. I There's musicians out there who will say, um, they don't practice scales and they only improvise, and they just everyone has their own routine. So I think that's number one. But I mean, for me, like I'm just a big believer, in the mechanics, or we cannot, if we don't have the mechanics, then good luck trying to play whatever you're going to play. So like I actually have this piece of paper. So it's like I didn't think I actually, it was just all happens to be on my desk, but it says like I practice, like if you take a look, like all just every like a million of these different finger combinations on all of these different strings. And there's 120 of them that I actually wrote it into a book. And that is like the maintenance practice, just to like be able to do what I want to do. Um, and that's the thing. You may not get through all 120, but like these different permutations is like the most important thing for me. So it's like after I would do those things, then I would take a break and then I would go work on a standard or something that I'm working on, just kind of improvise on it for maybe 20 minutes. And then go back to some technical stuff and then like actually do some more things where I have to think, like whether it's taking a certain permutation, in like uh like a major seven arpeggio, or like a tetrachord, running that in 3 octaves, taking it through the cycles, moving it up and down chromatically, then going back to more technical stuff. So it's always like just kind of like split up between like these exercises and then what else I need to work on. Uh, so like technical, then do some improvising on a standard, go back to technical, then do some scales. But I always think like this technical stuff, like is, I believe if you have the technique, like you're just free. I know it's annoying, but and not everyone like wants to do it, but I mean, it certainly helps me.
Okay, Sheryl. Um, do you want to say something about that? Because I know you have
Well,
your routine as
yeah,
well.
well,
You have a maintenance. You call it the same thing. So go, go, go.
well, it's not annoying to be free. I just think about it that way. I mean, yes, I do have a 2 hour thing that I do, but this is a big topic for me. For like with everybody, I talk to everybody, and I talk to my students. How do you practice? Because I think of you, and not everybody. Obviously, everybody has their own. And I think the more that you know yourself, you'll be better with everything in your life, right? But yes, for me, I do a lot of technique, and not for technique's sake. I don't care about speed or any of these things, actually. I have very complicated ideas, and I want to express them. So I need to, as you're saying, Abe, to have that facility, then you are free. So, if you're not that kind of player, you don't have those kind of ideas, then you can maybe work on other things or be more of a composer. I don't know. Everybody's got to find really what their thing is. But if you're a player, for me, that's what it is. But I've kind of said there are these 4 categories which what you're really saying, Abe, too, and you cycle back before, there's warm up, like literally warm up. You just came off the street or you got up at whatever time of day you're doing, and you got to just get here now in the moment, like a meditation. That's very short time. And then there's technique. And so what's in that category is always going to shift in your life. Then there's applying technique to music. So like you're saying, you'll work on some stuff, then you'll go play a standard. And then that kind of creates that circle where one is informing the other. You go to play on a tune and you have an idea and you can't execute it. So, guess what's going in the technical studies. So warm up technique, application of technique to music. And that could mean ear training in there and all that stuff and transcribing. And then music. I always think music is like the dessert after you ate all your Brussels sprouts. Personally, I love Brussels sprouts, but just as an analogy, right?
Brussels sprouts are pretty good.
I think they're really good and they're really good for you. But anyway, I think this is, what you're saying is this. It is important. Technique is important. Developing great technique. I mean, when you see anybody that you think, wow, that's a great player, and you observe them, and watch them play how they play, and then just listen to the music. There you have it. That's the motivation, right? To stay motivated to do same Hannon pattern I've been doing for 30 years.
Mhm.
Right? So yeah, that would be my question for you. Like, how do you keep inspired with some of those technical studies for yourself?
I mean, I know this might sound a bit ridiculous, but I mean, like, I I always I feel like I'm just getting started. Like even like even though I've been like playing jazz like since 2009 or something, like I guess but you want to call it professionally, like it's like I'm like just going back and listening to myself. Like now I'm like there's a lot of like tension I'm noticing and like just trying to undo that. I, I, I I think that's just something that's like you just want to get better. I don't know what it is. It's just I just believe we're never done, like on any level. So I don't know if that sounds naive or not, but
No, I don't think it sounds any, but it's also I don't know. I just always say, what a great way to spend your time on planet Earth, as you were saying. We're not here forever. And what do you want to spend your time on, and where do you want to put your values while you're here?
yeah, like let me break this down really. Like this is just one example. So like there was this like John Coltrane solo like that no guitar player like recorded them. There was someone recorded themselves the audio of it, but they never actually posted a video. So I was a little skeptical. So I'm like, let me try to like learn this thing. It was like it was like the hardest thing I ever like had to learn on guitar. And that's like all I practiced for like months, and technique. So it's like it's got to just be like this thing, like also too, like I have to do this. Like it's just I think it's just built in, like we have to. I don't and we can't do anything else that's going to make us feel as fulfilled, if that makes sense.
I agree. It makes, yeah, I mean, it's just how I feel, for at least, well, if I would say for myself, I feel like I'm wired that way. Just, or even, I used to joke with a friend, like just pressing, in our case, an electric guitar, metal on wood, or in Kim's case, nylon on wood. There's just something about that. Yeah, just that's what we're supposed to do.
I even like on weekends when I'm off, it's like I wish I know it's a balance too. Like I want to be off on certain weekends, but it's like when I'm off, I'm like, oh, it would be nice I'm at a gig right now. So I think there's also the balance too is important. Knowing yourself, knowing when it's too much as well.
Yeah, what do you is your advice to, I mean, I think there is value in taking breaks, just for your creativity physically too, like you don't want to burn yourself out in any of those ways. Is there anything that you like to do for that, or that you advise your students to do?
I think after you play a gig, don't go home and practice. I think if you do like a 3 hour gig, I think I used to do that. I used to do like 3 hour gigs, and then I would drive home and I would practice for like another hour or two. I would say don't do that. I would say if you have 2 gigs in a row, um, like on a Friday and Saturday, don't do it on Sunday. Just take the time for yourself, as well. I think we can burn ourselves out, which I've done before. I would also say if you have a gig, don't like if you have a gig at night, I would advise. I used to think if I have a gig at night, I have to stay. This is like when I was like 21. If I have a gig at like 8 o'clock, that means like between like 12 and 6 p.m. I need to practice for 6 hours, and it's gonna be like the worst gig I've ever had after that. So a couple hours is fine. Even 1 hour, but you don't have to. I think if you're gonna practice for 8 hours and then go play a jazz gig, like I don't think it's gonna go very well. Maybe John Coltrane, that's the exception.
Ben, what's on your mind listening to a fellow alumni in
Well,
here? What do you think
I
about
think going back to, a question we talked about at the beginning of this, which was, what's something that you can develop or learn in a non-musical way that you get from, being a musician. And I think it's just funny because almost every podcast episode we've done kind of always comes back to the same theme, just organically, which is really just, having the process and trusting the process. And I'm glad that we kind of got into the part of that today where trusting the process in a way that you're not sure. It's okay to not know what avenues are going to present themselves to you, but being able to be prepared for that and being able to adjust depending on where your career is not going to be linear. You're going to have some things that come up here, and it's trusting that process, even though that's not necessarily the musical side of the process. I mean, it is in the sense that you want to be prepared for it, but just the mental preparation for that, I think, is something that comes with age and experience. But I think students that are late teens, early 20s, the sooner you can sorry, Boylston Street right now, but yeah, the sooner you can at least start trying to prepare yourself, just I think having that awareness really can go a long way.
Lean into the discomfort. I would, lean into it. Don't run from it, and don't lie to yourself. And either, it's okay to feel like it's okay that you're not okay in this exact moment. Be honest with yourself about it, journal about it, but then just move forward. So I don't think we should run from those things either. I think confront them head on. Those the doubt.
Abe, you also strike me as someone who's just really excited about what you're doing and what you're working on. And I don't get the sense that you think of any one thing that you do as like the fallback thing. You love everything you do. And I think I live like that as well. And so I sort of love meeting someone else who has that kind of energy. And I think that that's not a common narrative, right? Like some people are like, well, I have to teach because I have to make the money, or I have to have this business because that's another part of my income. But it strikes me that there are parts of it right now that you're excited about every single thing you do. And I'm wondering if you could share a little highlight of that for people. Like, what's one thing about each of your avenues right now that is really getting you up in the morning, that when you're excited?
Well, the podcast is I love doing it. I love that I've created this platform to give artists a chance to speak. And like I told you, like, I was when I was talking to so many artists off and on the podcast, and I heard these frustrations that they were saying, I got like upset about it, like hearing certain artists like that haven't done certain things that I wish they have. Like it like just made me like, I'm like, I want to do something like to like make people inspired about the power we have as instrumentalists or artists. So I'm doing something called the Clubless New York City tour. Like it's 5 shows in Manhattan, spread over 2 days at places that aren't jazz venues or like a wine place, a garden, a restaurant, a furniture store, and this is like a celebration of like that artists can carve their own path, because it's like I hear people like constantly like with this frustration. So the podcast inspired me to do this thing. It's going to be in June. It's more of a performance piece and like an artistic statement than anything else. I mean, it's so that's something I'm excited about. Let's go the podcast and the playing part as well. They kind of go hand in hand, these two things.
I love that. What's the most exciting thing for you right now about your teaching?
The most exciting thing about teaching,
Mhm.
uh, I I have to, well, finals are coming up. So at the college I teach at, you know, because there are many different levels and everyone's coming in at a different place, everyone's final is catered to them. So
Mm.
they have to come in and play. They have 20 minutes to do the final. I give them 10 specific things they have to play through. And like I said, it's unique to them. So give them a chance to, you know, they'll have the material, but I like that process of like giving everyone, you know, because they're all coming, they're not music majors. So even though there can be 8 semesters, I that's exciting me. I know it sounds strange, the final exam.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. It is really interesting to tailor it to each person and see what can they come up with, and what are the challenges for them, and it's really fun to me too, just to see how far people come and how they grow.
Definitely. I mean, and as far as students go, like you know, I don't just teach guitar. I teach piano as well. So like I enjoy doing that as well. You know, just teaching different instruments, because it's like I mean, like I'm not a piano player by any means. I would never perform piano on a jazz gig or something, but like I enjoy it. Like you know, I have one person who wants to study piano with me, and we can have fun, but I'll also give them the technique stuff they need to do, and even like some of the Hanon stuff on piano. So it's all relative. We got to wear the hats, right?
I think so. I think so. And I think one of the nice things I remember too is it's such a gift for students, and I think for us too, to have a one-on-one relationship with a teacher.
It's like super. It's you know, you can change someone's life for, you know, and you're gonna mold. You can, you know, the teachers you have shape us into who we are forever, in a way.
Yeah, I think that's true. Um, Abe, were there standout people that you worked with at Berkeley who you remember, some teachers you remember from the guitar department?
Um, yeah, well, I had many different. I had, you know, several teachers. My main teacher was a teacher named John Thomas. You know, he passed away a couple years ago. He was my main mentor. But you know, we had like I think you and I were talking about this on our podcast, Kim. It was like we had a the relationship was a little, you know, he was my mentor. So you will that was unique experience to study with him. But I remember studying. I took a semester with Sal DeFusco, and he was such a great teacher. Uh, he knew what I was looking for, and he showed me the materials to get there. He didn't hide anything at all, and you know, like I really just wanted some new like applicable things for improvisation. And he gave me all this Charlie Banaco stuff, which I still use to this day. Um, I remember, you know, studying with Kurt Shoemate. I don't know if he's there or not anymore.
He
Uh,
just retired
yeah.
recently. Yeah.
So he had that survey of guitar styles class,
Mhm.
and I did for that class I did a report on the jazz guitarists Peter Bernstein and Kurt Rosewinkle, and like I ended up studying with Peter during my master's degree, and then funnily enough, like I ran into to Kurt Rosewinkle in the city, and I was like, oh, I just did this report on you, you know, and it was like, oh, what did you do? Like, and so it's that was a trip though. I mean, like, well, I mean, that class was so cool to allow us to be creative with the report we did, the transcription analysis and essays on those players. So
Oh,
that
that's
stands out.
really cool. That's really cool. Um, This has been such a great hour. There's so many things, and I feel like we could do an episode on each one of of the things that we talked about. But Sheryl, as we're kind of coming to the end of this coffee, like, what's on your mind?
Well, thanks, Abe, for coming on the show.
Well,
And
my honor. My
yeah,
pleasure.
and
Honored to be here.
yeah, just sharing. So I think it's good to hear from an alum about, taking all the things, but being open to learn as much as you can while you're here, so that when you get out there, you're ready to go in any direction and to be open to what that direction is. It's good to hear that from you, because that they're asking that question all the time. They're asking those questions all the time. So I know they'll get a lot of inspiration from hearing you talk about that.
Yeah, I hope the students who like, if it's in their heart to do this for the rest of their life, like think outside the box, because we create these opportunities and we can bring other people in, and everything is just going to grow, and the music's going to it's going to reach more people. So go against the grain a little bit.
Ben, I know that you're hearing a lot of parallels to the way you think as well, and to how your life is working right now.
Yeah, it's really great to hear from another alumni, and it's great to meet you,
Yeah.
kind of in person, over Zoom. But yeah, it's I mean, I'm much more the rock genre, but it's just so much of everything you're saying. I mean, at the end, I mean, as we all know, I mean, style, it's all music, it's all consistent, but it's really just all the things that you're talking about with jazz is everything that's I've been trying to do in my own career as a performer and teacher, outside of Berkeley as well. So it's really enlightening to be able to to hear your thoughts on all of this.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it's informative, and people gain something from it.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's such a good time to do this because in the trajectory of our semester, we're in the second half of the semester. Like you said, we're starting to think about finals. And when that happens, it's so easy to get bogged down and to forget about why we're doing this. And to also think of everything as a competition or everything as a jury. And in reality, it's like, how can what you're doing right now help you shape the life that you want to live and love to live in music? And what makes you different and what makes you the same as part of the community in terms of like your work ethic and our shared commitment to things that we can relate to and support each other. And then what makes you yourself. And it's such a great time to have your energy here coming in and saying like, yes, go for it because I did, and this is what I'm doing. It's really cool. So thank you so much for being.
No, it's an honor. Again, thank you for asking me.
Yeah. Unfortunately, everybody, we all have to go teach. Every single one of us. And so we're gonna hang for another few minutes. But I just want to say thank you so much, Abe. Thank you so much, Sheryl, and thank you, Ben. This has been great. And for the rest of you, thanks for being with us, and we will be with you all again on the next Coffee Talk. Have a great one.